according to our Pete Thamel, sources have said the Texas A&M associate head coach Elijah Robinson is expected to serve as the interim coach at Texas A&M. So Jimbo Fisher, after 7 years, is out. $70+ million, and this thing is over. I find this big picture to be one of the great mismanaged hires in the history of college football. Well, Matt, why do you say that? There's been some other bad hires. Yeah, there have. There's been colossally bad hires. And Jimbo Fisher recruited at a high level. But not one of those hires that were worse than this is going to cost a program $70+ million to win-loss wise be better off than the guy you got rid of anyway, and Kevin Sumlin. And that's what makes this so damaging to Texas A&M's brand. I think it's a hell of a job. The resources are off the charts. But how do you take them seriously after paying this kind of money to be no better off than you were when you got him? Yeah, you're getting 5 stars, but every year the 5 stars and 4 stars, they're looking for more NIL money. There's a lot in the portal. They're not winning the big games. I just find this to be so irresponsible for college football because of the money that was thrown out there to catch what at the time appeared to be the biggest fish in the sea. For what? You can't look anyone in the eye if you're Texas A&M, if you're an administrator, you're talking about financial resource and everything in between. How do you look anyone in the eye and say, no, hey, we're we gotta tighten the belts a little bit? You just paid $70+ million to get rid of a coach that did not elevate you to the level you thought you were capable of being elevated to. And that's why, for me, we talk about this extensively on the recap with Paul Feinbaum this week. At some point, coaching hires are about sizzle, rarely about substance. You go in, you try to find the biggest name you can to lead your program to championship level heights. Well, the last time I checked, when all of this coaching circus was going around, LSU was trying to bid for Tom Herman, Jimbo Fisher, and Ed Ogeron ended up getting the job and winning a national championship at LSU. Sometimes the best hire, and Ed O is the best hire at the time. That's obviously since moved on, and Brian Kelly's doing a phenomenal job there, which, by the way, cheers to Jaden Daniels. If he's not a Heisman Trophy candidate, I don't know what a Heisman Trophy candidate is supposed to look like. He set an FBS record last night. He's absolutely insane. I digress. But that's taking care of itself. Point being that a lot of times the best hire isn't always the biggest name and not the most expensive name. I go way back when to Dabo Swinney. Yeah, now he's one of the highest paid coaches in college football. Yeah, now he's won a couple of national championships. But at the time, he was an interim coach that was a receivers coach at Clemson. Never had been a coordinator. He was a receivers coach, and they're thinking, well, what the hell? Let's give this guy a shot. And now he's Dabo Swinney at a major program like Clemson. Sometimes the biggest name isn't always the best solution. And what Texas A&M did, yeah, they won the press conference. Great. They won the biggest name. Great. They didn't win the biggest games. They didn't win the biggest prize. They couldn't get out of the SEC West. And if you're going to hire in the SEC West, you got to know you're going up against Nick Saban. You got to know you're going up against LSU. You got to know you're going up against Auburn, up and down as they might be, which, by the way, cheers Hugh Freeze. Our guy Hugh Freeze, friend of the program, has Auburn bowl eligible in year 1. But again, point being, name doesn't always correlate with success. Sometimes it does, but name doesn't become name until you work your way up. And I get it. Jimbo Fisher won a national championship at Florida State. He also had Jameis Winston, who ended up being the #1 overall pick and a Heisman Trophy winner. A lot of times, coaches' success is hinged on the players they're attached to. That's what makes Nick Saban so great. He continues to win time after time with a different team. Look at Jalen Milroe. This is a guy who just ran through Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, and Bryce Young. First-round draft picks at NFL. Now he's got a guy that could start at running back at any team in the country playing quarterback, and they're going back to play at the SEC championship. Name isn't always the way to go. What coach could stand the test of roster turnover time? Kirby Smart. Hell, Kirby Smart was going to get the South Carolina job until Georgia freaked out that one of their own was going to take the South Carolina job. They punt on Rick, bring Kirby Smart in, and the rest is history. Kirby was a good name, but he wasn't the Jimbo Fisher name. He was $70 million. All he's done is won 2 consecutive national championships, and they appear to be well on their way to a 3rd consecutive, which is why you have to really be creative with how this is going to go down. Texas A&M fans may not want to hear it. They may not want to hear that their ego is going to have to take a step down to take a step forward. Well, what does that look like? Find a guy who can coach. It doesn't always need to be the biggest name. I brought this up with Feinbaum. Chris Kleiman. Look what he did at North Dakota State. He's got Kansas State playing really good football. Lance Leipold has won everywhere he's gone. He was at Buffalo. Now he's at Kansas. He's made them relevant. Suffered a bad loss yesterday to Texas Tech. But point being, if you really do a coaching search based on coaches, not names, coaches, you might find the guy you're looking for. And oh, by the way, he might not cost you $70 million. Some of the names that our Pete Thamel from ESPN has put out there, he says early list of potential names for Texas A&M, knowing that money is no object. And there it is right there. Like, this is going to cost him close to $100 million, well over $100 million, actually, to get rid of Jimbo, the staff, and bring in a new coach and a new staff. To be average. Names: Lane Kiffin, Mike Elko, Mike Norvell, Dan Lanning, which, by the way, could you imagine if Florida State, or I'm sorry, can you imagine if Texas A&M went to Florida State again for their next head coach like they did Jimbo Fisher? That's why I don't think it's going to happen. I think that I'm a little superstitious in that I don't know the Ross DeBoer's going to go in there and say, let's go back to Florida State one more time to get our coach. But Norvell, Dan Lanning, that's the one that I would zero in on in terms of who I think A&M's going to want to pull in there. Jeff Traylor is so interesting to me because he's kind of in the realm of the guy that I was just talking about. Can coach ball. He's at UTSA right up the road. I mean, that's the kind of guy where if you just want to say, you know what, to hell with the sizzle, bring me the substance, that's a guy you look at. A guy that's at a smaller school who's found a way to win, that can recruit the great state of Texas and win ball games. Because ultimately, what are we in this for? To win games. So Traylor's name's on there. Chris Kleiman, mentioned him a second ago. Didn't know he was on this list. Cliff Kingsbury. Now, Cliff, great. Let's stay away from that one. And Kalen DeBoer, head coach Washington. The only problem I see with Lanning, DeBoer, Washington and Oregon respectively is that they're obviously well in the college football playoff hunt, the Pac-12 championship hunt. That's going to be a tough get, in my opinion, because of where they are. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think we're at a day and age in college football where I would want my alma mater, if I was at Texas A&M, guys, who's going to give us the best chance to win? I know you have oil money. I know you have unlimited resources. That let's put those resources to use instead of just cutting a check for $70+ million to get us nowhere closer to where we were than when we made this financial mistake to begin with. And I'm not ripping Jimbo Fisher. He had impossible expectations based on his paycheck and based on everything he's got to go through in the SEC West. Impossible. But at the end of the day, you get paid to perform. And he just didn't do it. And it's just the way of the coaching world right now. It's who's got the best bidder, who's got the biggest name, and who can make the biggest splash. Stop doing that. Just go with who's going to win you football games. There's a lot of coaches out there that can do it. And so that's my thought on Jimbo. He's look, there's a lot of people that might feel sorry for him this morning. I'm just telling you, if you want to pay me $70 million to go away, I'm not hard to find. I'm right here. 70 mil, let's go. You'll never see me again, by the way. I would go live in some remote village in Iceland for $70 million and just hide. Actually, Iceland's probably too cold. Somewhere tropical. Give me something I can feel. Like a cigarette.